Kayfabe Weekly Shoot 65. I'm Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Jim, what day is it?
May 13.
Yes. Awesome. Cool. So, big week this past week, man. I would call it the Kayfabe Effect week in a lot of ways, man, because we sold some books and other things, man. Let's go down the list. You guys have shown and proven, man, that the Kayfabe Effect is some real shit because we told you, go scoop up that Glenn Bray book. You guys definitely did before we put that video live, man. And I was thrilled with the results of that video when it sort of disseminated and went out there. Great conversation came up.
That was a very, very fun video to record.
A lot of awesome correspondence with our creative brethren, man. When Gary Panther hits me up and is like, Ed, you got to do whatever next time you're in Cali, you got to do whatever you can, man. You got to get in with this dude. It's like, there is this like West Coast Illuminati piece of comics, man. And they all know each other and they're juiced in, man. They're juiced in. So there was that. The Glenn Bray video sold a bunch of those books. We had Roar and Rick Veitch in the house. And I sent you an email at the start of the day. Here's where the Amazon numbers are right now. Let's see if the Kayfabers are going to show up or are they going to make me a liar to one of my comic book heroes, man. And those numbers,
yes,
steady shooting upward. Top it off, man, with the fact that, and tell me if I'm wrong, man, but I got a pretty frantic text from you one day. And you said, Ed, I fucking accidentally made my Kickstarter live. And I'm going crazy here. And you didn't tell anybody about it.
Right.
And nobody knew about it. And you still hit your goal 3 times over. Congratulations, man.
We're approaching 5 times over.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was very frantic. I did not plan on, I think last week I said I was going to do it on like May 18th. And I thought I was just setting it up so I could share it with people. But I was wrong and it was live and no going back, or at least at that point I figured, well, I'll just keep doing all the prep I still need to do and leave it up. So the scramble this weekend has been trying to catch up because I had things planned to organize this a little bit better. Kind of chaotic, but man, talk about Kayfabe Effect firsthand. That's not watching rankings or anything. That is watching guys just posting and sharing it. I don't know how they found out about it in the first place.
Strictly word of mouth.
Yeah, totally word of mouth. So thank you all, everyone who has done that so far. Anybody that has no idea what we're talking about, I have a Kickstarter up right now for my next comic book. It's a black light comic book for called Octobriana 1976, based on a Russian underground superhero comic from the 60s. And the black light part is that we are going to print it with fluorescent ink. It's kind of a complicated thing, like you need to hit fluorescence twice in order to charge them. So there's some technical stuff there that I have been wanting to do for a year and finally get the chance. And it feels like a perfect fit for Kickstarter. So, I had planned on doing it as a secret and then just showing up at comic book shows with it this year. Once COVID hit and all those shows are canceled, you got to pivot.
Yeah.
And so the pivot to Kickstarter has been a good one so far. And again, thanks to all of you. If this is new, go check it out. If you don't know what Octobriana is, one of my favorite bits of comics history is Octobriana, this really bizarre story that came out in 1971 in a book, and one of the videos we posted last week is all about that backstory. So if you don't know Octobriana yet, we can help you. Check out that video. I highly encourage it. Besides my comic book, it's just one of my favorite stories in comics. I came across it several years ago from one of those like weird comic anthologies mentioning it, and it's just a fun story. So check out that video.
Let's keep on this track, but first, a little bit of business. At the top of the show, man. Thumbnail art. Ethan Spalding is the guy who drew this magnificent piece, man, with Tom Scioli in the back there on that like hydrofoil gimmick.
Love it.
Ethan's Instagram link is in the description directly below this video. Give him a follow, man. Check out his stuff. He's a super cool cat. One of my big regrets when I was in Japan was first off, so many people I know tangentially were out there at the same time, just for whatever reason. He's an animator, and I just could never connect with him in person, and we've been Instagram pals for years at this point, man. So I want to tell all the Kayfabers who are interested in doing a thumbnail for the channel, the dimensions, 1280 by 720 pixels, And email that stuff to us at cartoonist.kayfabe@gmail.com. Include your Instagram link, your website data, whatever you want us to include in that link. Simple rules. No damn coronavirus drawings. No number to try to anticipate the episode of which Kayfabe Weekly this would go live with. You got to make us look cool. And a couple people definitely showing up and hooked us up with that kind of generosity. And I think that's it.
Yeah, that sounds like enough rules for now.
Yeah. back to the Kickstarter though. You have no knowledge of how like the first people got
No.
made aware of this thing?
I don't. And then once it happens, like once several people know about it, it becomes, impossible for me to trace back.
Right.
Maybe that's something people can do, but not me. I don't know. I assume, people were subscribed to Kickstarter. They get notifications when things pop up. Maybe somebody had a Google board set up for it, since we were talking about doing a Kickstarter. Something like that, Yeah, I should know patient number 1, patient 0 that started it all, but I don't. I don't know exactly how that started. But it was cool to see, like when I wasn't sure about should I cancel this because I wasn't quite ready, and then you see the first pledge, and it's like, it's
keep
on.
it rocking.
Let's go.
Gotta keep it rocking.
Very glad I did. Ed, I think you've made comments in the past that I tend to maybe deliberate too much in some cases. So one of the benefits of getting this thing up and running is no time for that. It's just like, well, it's up. Now I need to play catch up. And it's good. It keeps my mind occupied. I'm not worried about anything because I do have a list of things that I'm trying to get done. So, it keeps me kind of on point. And if anything, it's a head start. This is the pre-season for the Kickstarter.
We have a kludge of stuff in our description notes below every video, man. We have our Instagrams and we have all of our Twitters and all of that, man. But the Kickstarter, whenever we get off and we get the chance, gonna pin a Kickstarter link to Jimmy's thing below every video that we put up with in the foreseeable future until the thing is toast. Like let's see where we can get this thing. I'll
put this out there.
Yeah.
My $1 million stretch goal
Right.
will be for us to get a real studio space.
Yeah.
How about that for a kayfabe goal?
I was thinking like, this is such a beautiful package, pause. It's a really good looking comic. It fucking deserves every dollar that comes your way. And it's such a good use of like the channel that we've created in a lot of ways, man, because I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait to put it under the microscope. Doing the Octobriana video was a pleasure. That's something I have no freaking idea about. And I really want to see a good showing from the audience out there on this thing, man, because it actually proves a lot of stuff to me, man. Like the whole reason that I decided to go down this path and like even dabble with the idea of starting like a YouTube channel was because I wasn't seeing any real comics talk in any way, man. And there are very successful Kickstarters that have been funded by way of comics, but it's been ideologically based on several different accounts. Far left gets their shit funded, crazy 6 figures. The right, same deal. You know what I mean? We don't put any of that shit out there of our own. You don't know what our opinions are in those regards. The ideology of Cartoonist Kayfabe, simple. Make more comics. Read more comics. Motherfucker. You know what I mean? Everything we do here is about showing off the shit we love, showing off the stuff that sort of gets our fires going and makes it fun and pleasurable for us to sit at our drawing tables for 10, 12 hours a day. Like, that's the spirit of this channel. You know what I mean? And the fact that the audience has been growing the way it has illustrates that people wanted this same thing. And I want you to benefit as much as any of the ideologues on any of the other polls.
Well, I appreciate all that, Ed. I feel like I should hire you for my mouthpiece, man. You do a better job describing this than I have so far.
White meat, babyface, Jim Cornette-like, heel-like manager. Jim Rugg, he said that high school was his favorite... No, what is it? English was his favorite subject in high school. Nah, never mind. I'm going to have to work on that. There's something about he enjoyed it for 6 years or 8
Yes,
years or something
yeah.
like that. I'll work on that part of it, man.
That's good.
I'll stay a cartoonist for a little while.
Well, Ed, I'm not the only one getting into crowdfunding this week.
Let's
talk Patreon.
The Rick Veitch conversation was important to me. He's a cartoonist that I have always dug so much. In fact, man, I used this past week to just dust off some of those back issues, baby, and revisit old Uncle Rick's comics. And man, are they a freaking pleasure. So much of his craft and everything was the inspiration for me to even make comics the way that I do. The idea of like being the single letterer, and the fact that I had like the same lettering teacher, essentially, you know what I mean? Like I could look at his lettering and like I know the tools, man, that high fucking beat into you to get you to get those like perfect letter forms, man. So when he's talking about like the future of Patreon and all of that as being like a model, I face an uncertain future. This year already was going to be a production year for me. You know, like the plan was to just hunker down and make my comics, you know, like that's going to the ebb and flow of my career will always be that, where there'll be these oscillating years of like publicizing the thing and then producing the thing. You know what I'm saying? So I post those little images on Instagram and I always get dozens of DMs, emails, and just comments in the threads. When can I order this? Like, when can I see this? I want to read it. And these people seem ravenous. They seem super stoked on it. And I have no problem sliding it, super high-res scans, to, like, the privileged few who are willing to sort of, like, support the project, you know? So it's like Patreon.com, Ed Piskor. That's the thing. And it's like, why haven't we mentioned these things at the top of the show since we started to begin? You know what I'm saying? So I plan on sliding out pages. Like, I already set it up. Like, it's going to be updated every Tuesday for at least a year, you know, 2-3 pages at least, sometimes 4 maybe. But then I have like 100 pages of the first draft that I drew on Xerox paper. I'm going to put that on there, like, like in the, you know, some of the other days during the week, man. And that's for the people who really, you know, put their money where their mouth is. And it's like, you want to see it early, I'll let you see it early.
That's one of my favorite things. I've done a couple of like process zines that show that process and share those sketches and drafts, and the putting it together is so much fun. I think you're really going to enjoy that part, because there is a dialogue that comes out of it. It's a different group of readers and fans that want that stuff, and they're equally fun to engage with. You know, in a lot of ways, it's the conversations we have with cartoonists where it is like craft. It is a chance to show stuff that you're proud of, but it's like, I ended up with a better choice, or I had to change that scene for some reason, but at least you get to show off that drawing.
It is a different
that
set.
idea, you know, whatever that detail is. But I love those conversations. I'm doing a process zine for the Kickstarter because I love that part of it. And we go to cartoonists, our friends, we go to their studio or something, and you get to see that. And it's some of the best parts of like visiting and hanging out and knowing other cartoonists, is getting that behind the scenes piece. And Patreon's a perfect place for it.
Yeah. Like I, you know, I always would bristle at such things, Ben, but it just makes sense the more I think about like the uncertainty of everything that's going in the future. Why not? And I'm gonna just attack it the same way I did with Kayfabe, man. And you know, I got regular intervals like set up, ready to go, man. It's gonna be constantly updated, and a lot of it isn't necessarily gonna see the final printed book or anything like this, man. And it is a different set. Like, the people who are willing to invest in that way, that's a social network that I can give more of my time. You know, like when I get 100, 200 Instagram DMs a day, 200 emails a day, on my list of priorities, when it comes to Kayfabe and just making my comics, those are very low. But if you're willing to like invest in the future of this project, and what they would be investing in is just that first peak. I might do like a proper webcomic in the future. I was actually looking at the terms of Webtoon. No extreme violence, because that's all like milquetoast punk comics, like real soft bullshit.
That's
And
hilarious.
I was like so stoked to be like the Junji Ito type energy or something, like the real like outlaw.
I want you to do that now anyway. See what
I might
happens.
float
See if
it.
they come down on you.
I might float it, and guess what, man? If you're at Webtoon and you take my thing down and I get any correspondence, it's going on the back cover at the very least. And if it's good, it's going on the front cover, man. So be careful, motherfuckers.
I love it. That's the best.
You know what else though? I saw on the Octobriana cover, it has the outlaw stamp. I'm using it. I'm putting that on my shit, dude. It's almost like this is our Image Comics logo type shit, like where it's like our own studio, where it's like you make your comic, you make what you make. I'll make my Spawn and I'll make what I make, but it's like the unifying vision. You know what I'm saying? I'm putting that on my thing.
It's sad because some of my stuff just isn't very outlaw.
No.
But Octobriana is.
Yeah.
Like that was something that people, man, they'll go to the gulag or whatever for get caught with that.
It has such a kind of a cult following. You posted something earlier on Twitter, and did you see Coop's sketchbook image?
I did, yes.
Super dope, man. And he drew like little big fucking 70s pubes coming out from there, man.
Yes.
So if you need any ghost work, I reviewed your PDF and I don't think I saw any of that, man. I work at a good rate, man, for my friends.
Keep that in mind.
I got those Copic fine liners, man, and I'm getting real good. I've been studying these vigil Fausts, man. And that homeboy delineates every pubic hair.
It is true. It is true.
Sometimes even has lighting off of them shits.
Double lip pubic hairs.
We got a bunch of stuff that we have to do today. Like this is odd for us, right? Like we haven't done like a later stream in a while, and it's not Thursday. At least if I check my phone and my calendar.
Today is keeping with my weekly theme of chaos. It's going differently than I thought it would when I woke up this morning.
But there's value to that, man, because
it will pay off.
We just got done with an amazing shoot interview that you guys are not going to want to miss on Sunday. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel because you're going to want to get notified to this thing bright and early, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to rewatching it. Letting the a little peek behind the kayfabe curtain here is you edit these interviews, Ed. So I am like a fan now because I'm eager to see this one again.
Dude, when I usually we close this out and I get busy. And just revisiting the interviews 2 hours after we do it, I bust out laughing. Like I get as much out of it as I did the first go round. And I'm very excited to get to this piece. And it is hard to stay in this chair with this blank drawing board behind me. Like I'm ready to get busy.
I'll tell you this. I laughed enough in this one that my face hurt.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, that rewatch should be entertaining.
A lot of good shooting interviews coming up in the future. Like the channel, the roll is not slowing, man. Like we sort of got to thank Uncle Todd. I know I thanked him before, but I'm definitely appreciative that Uncle Todd sort of hit us up and got us to figure out some of those technical pieces so that we could do these streams and make that happen, man, because it's we both have full plates. The YouTube thing is fun. You know what I'm saying? But it's not that's not what keeps the lights on in our houses. You know what I'm saying? This is extra. And there's a finite amount of time you could put into that. And I think also you guys are going to see that the technical part of just the streams and everything are just going to get better and better, man, because in between the editing and all that, I'm on the forums. I'm on the OBS forums and trying to figure out, what do I do to solve this lip sync issue and all of that stuff, man. So we are on the proper trajectory to make this thing, sing, to make it a perfect YouTube channel by my standards, man.
Any other takeaways from the Rick Veitch interview, Ed?
Oh man, I'm on the spot. I'm on the spot right now.
One of the things that stood out to me that I really enjoyed was, and he said it a couple times, was that he doesn't view the making comics as work, but rather as play. And he hits it a couple of times, you know, like he really came around on it, and it stands out to me. I don't always think in those terms, but when he said it, it makes perfect sense. My favorite comics that I've made, that's what they feel like. it's like get everything else out of the way so that I can get to making that comic. And it was cool to hear him say that, especially at his age. I mean, comics have a sad history of a lot of guys his age not doing well, or being bitter at the industry. And it was awesome to see him still having that energy, which you just don't always know what you're going to get. You read these comics, right? You read those comics of his that are so just filled with life.
Yeah.
You never know what the guy's like. So it was awesome to see him still have that kind of love of making the comics. Really cool.
Worth noting that was the first time that we've ever spoken to the guy. At this point, I have no fear of bringing whoever we want onto the thing and having a good conversation, because the trick is provide comfort up front, crack a little joke or two, man, and just like have a little bit of that kind of rapport. But tell me if you've been in this situation before, man, because I've been in this situation fucking dozens of times, man. Now that comics have invaded academia, get to go to the college thing, and comics, at some point, sometimes there might be two separate important comics things happening on one college campus at the same time. So you're there for your thing, and some other cartoonists might be there for some other thing. This has happened to me a lot of times. Or maybe they have a gallery show in New York at that time or something. A dinner happens afterward, and you got all the academics there, and they're slinging their fucking academic dicks on the table, man, to try to like be all cool, and what they're doing is being performative for us, because like we have nothing to show and prove. Like our work speaks for itself. Our work brought us to your campus.
Right.
We are the artists. We are the makers, and you're like conceptual. They're the conceptual types who have a lot of book learning in. So they are showing off, and your fucking eyes glaze. And the other cartoonist is over at that part of the table, and their eyes glaze. And then you guys, like, your eyes meet. And then it's on. You just sit there, man. Yo, how many artist editions you have? Which ones you got? Oh, I have this one, man, but I think this guy's... Like, that's how it's happened to me a bunch of times. And the goal for me when we start these shoots up is to just capture a little bit of that spirit so that they know we're speaking the same language. We're not the clickbaity, Rob Liefeld top 10 worst drawings. Suck my balls. That is so fucking below me. And it would be embarrassing to me if I brought on a cartoonist that I liked and they thought that that's what we were about.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like I have no fear about anybody we bring on that we're going to have a good conversation, man. Because it's never happened at a dinner. Where you get involved with
you are somebody. Right, and it is fun, the almost like trajectory thing of figuring out the Venn diagram, almost the language. It's a Rosetta Stone in those first few minutes of different comic books, different cartoonist names come up, and pretty soon it's like, okay, we're good.
And we have self-awareness, man, and we're not insecure in that way of like, oh well, they don't know who we are, so like it doesn't matter.
It's very true.
It doesn't matter, man. Like, let's talk pay stubs for 2 seconds. What setting do you have your Ames guide on? And then it's on like Donkey Kong. But the fun thing was important because you think about the Malcolm Gladwell outliers, 10,000 hours practice. Like that's a meme at this point, the 10,000 hours thing. And the trick, man, like the way to master life is to find what engages you enough to invest those 10,000 hours without counting it and watching the clock. If you can pleasurably accumulate your 10,000 hours practice, what more could you want out of life, man?
That's so true. Because there are a couple ways you would get it, and one would be a terrible job that you dread every day.
Right.
You'll end up with your 10,000 hours at the end of that career, but man, not a good life.
True.
And almost anything else, if you don't love it, you're not going to stick to it.
Exactly.
If it's training for anything, if it's really that you hate it that much that you're counting the hours, you're not going to reach the 10,000.
Yeah. It was great to get that on record, man. He's a cartoonist I dug forever, and real pleasure to.
You mentioned I saw some of your posts, books that you were reading and revisiting and stuff. Saw a lot of Kayfabers posting similar stuff, and I love that. Like,
yeah.
I love all these books and pulling this stuff out. So it was cool to see everybody kind of like sharing that and digging back in. A also, you know, there's a handful of these books that seem to have some sort of almost generational influence or something. And I saw so many people talking Brat Pack that way. And I mentioned it in the interview, you know, like it was one of those right age, right time. Seeing that book really kind of changed comics for me. And it feels like that's a book that a lot of people had a connection to.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to dust it off.
Yes, for sure. I look forward to revisiting that one again anytime.
And I have no problem teasing it on here, man, because nobody could do it like we do it. That's the other thing I like to do, man, is like by having some of the people we have on the channel that we do, man, we are actually proving, well, it's almost like we're doing a disservice to ourselves in a small way, because we are proving that there are other charming and charismatic people in comics besides the two of us. See, that was a Jim Cornette kind of piece, right?
That's good. Agree? Yeah, I'm with you. I don't have too much more on Rick, but one thing I would say is that career, man, everything. Like that dude did everything I can think of that you might participate in, from undergrounds to digital comics and everything in between. Not very many people can check off that many items.
Let's think about Bissett, Tim Truman, Rick Veitch, peers who all went to the Kubert School roundabouts the same time. Clearly designed their own careers for the most part, you know, and that's an inspiration to me. That's like a big takeaway for me. And he mentioned that in the shoot interview too, man, where he was like, his goal was to just like carve his own piece of like the comics into his own work. That's a little bit of like what they kind of teach you at the Kubert School, to just put those thoughts into your mind. But that's sort of how I've always rolled, man. Like comics is so freaking hard to do in relative terms. Like, I don't need to see some douchebag talking about sheetrock in a bathroom is, you know, tougher work or whatever. We get it. But why put all that equity into something that you don't give a fuck about? I just don't get it.
Yeah, like I said in the, you know, a couple minutes ago, you see a lot of older cartoonists that are bitter. And I think that's why, you know, you end up drawing a book you don't like because you feel stuck at that point in your life, or you know, who knows why. Maybe you had dreams that didn't come to fruition. Whatever the case may be, it is common to I'm sure we could list some cartoonists that feel that way or seem that way whenever we meet them. So I've always looked for that alternative. And, you know, those three guys, Bissett, Truman, and Veitch, are guys that I started following early and were an alternative. You know, you could see different paths and different approaches, and certainly work that was unique to them. You know, like nobody else was doing a dinosaur comic. There might have been one other dinosaur comic in the 90s, you know, and the stuff that Tim Truman did, like his whole career feels like it was outside of the mainstream and just what he was into. So they were an example to me before I realized, like, oh, study the career part too. You know, like understand these parts. You know, there's more to comics than Spider-Man, and you might not want to draw Spider-Man at that age. So yeah, I was thrilled to get to talk to him, and feedback that I have seen pop up all seems to a lot of other people felt the same way. I always like that too, like these guys getting their due, you know, getting some attention, getting you know, we shine a light on this artist or that book or whatever, and then hopefully they see the feedback, they see that it's not just us that like these guys, that, hey, guess what, we're almost the voice for a bunch of people that feel this way, that dig your work, that you had an impact on.
And once again, we'll circle it back, man, because it's not like Rick's Max Immortal Amazon numbers were bad by any stretch, but watching like an exponential growth.
I give you credit for thinking to look at that before and after.
Men lie, women lie, numbers don't, man. And there's very few things that I have to quantify how the channel works. The Amazon ranking is one of those pieces, man. Now your Kickstarter is a piece of that. And throw my hat in the ring, man. Hit up that Ed Piscor Patreon, and that's like how we discover the sort of success of what we've been doing for the past year and a half or whatever. What else do we got going on, man?
I have a little bit of a sad item to cover if we're ready to go there.
Let's do it. And this is weeks in the making. Like we've lost a lot of cartoonists.
That is true.
In the past couple of weeks, and I think that's where you're going to take things. Okay, so start it off because. Go ahead.
Rest in peace, Richard Sala.
Yeah,
I've never met Richard Sala. Huge fan of his work. Don't know anything about the circumstances around his passing, but I did read Dan Clowes wrote a eulogy or memorial, I guess is a better word maybe for it. I don't know what you call in print, but on tcj.com, and a few other Bay Area cartoonists chimed in the comments that were part of the cabal, the cartoonist cabal that Richard Sala was a part of there. Some really touching stuff, really nice to read those memories. And, you know, an amazing, amazing artist. Like, that's another guy, you look at those comics, he made comics like no one else. He made the comics he wanted to make. He found an audience for those comics, you know, all these things that I aspire to. And it's such a bummer that we don't appreciate it until it's gone. You know, it's you read these testimonials and just think about the guy and the work, and it's amazing to revisit that.
Yeah.
But also sad that we're doing it now instead of, you know, in person or you know, while they're still alive. And, you know, for people watching, I would just say, if there are artists that you really love that have really touched your life, reach out to them, you know, send them a note, you know, post something on social media letting them know that you love their stuff, because it does mean something. And, you know, don't take for granted that you can do this anytime. Like,
that's a small part of like what we're doing here in some way, man, is paying reverence to our comic book elders, man, giving them the flowers while they could still smell them type shit. And the Klaus piece was kind of crucial for me to read, just simply in regards to Sala's work, because it sort of bolsters some ideas I had about Richard Sala's stuff. In fact, I just randomly, I've been watching, I was watching Beavis and Butthead episodes this past week, and while I was drawing, and I decided I'll fuck with some Liquid Television. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like I'll bust those out. Like, those were so inspirational to me when I was growing up and trying to figure out just like art, you know, styles that were divorced from, you know, the standard nonsense that we see on regular cartoons or whatever. And Invisible Hands, Richard Sala, there's like 2 or 3 Richard Sala cartoons, man. And what I was sort of like, because the art is so divorced from the run of the mill kind of illustration shit. And in the 90s, I would defy you to go to your doctor's office, or go to the dentist, pick up any of those magazines that are sitting there on the coffee table. I defy you to not find a Richard Sala illustration in one of those magazines. Yeah. Super robust career in the illustration game, and constantly did comics. Those dudes in the 90s who are doing that are my heroes in ways that I can't even articulate, man, because those comics are like passion projects. Those things are not selling in any major way, and the royalty structure is like 7 cents on a dollar, something like that. You're not even paying an electric bill with what you were getting on 90s independent comics royalties, man. But they did it, and they did it while moonlighting, having these like big illustration careers. But his work felt like there was a lot of interior, a lot of introversion. It's his own point of view of the world, and it's very specific. And to find out that the dude kind of like, you know, didn't leave the house all that much and all that, it just clicked. It just clicked with like the reading experience that I've had with his work, the feelings I've had looking at the material. But yeah, rest in peace, Richard Sala. A week or two before that, Mort Drucker. We lost Mort Drucker. You know what I'm saying? Week or two before that, the Meta Barons cartoonist. First name, I'm blanking. Jimenez. Is that how you say? Jimenez?
Jimenez.
Jimenez. Yeah. When we did the... now, who knows how all of these things happen. Like, we're not going to speculate. We don't know. But when we did the Howard Chaykin shoot interview, and he was telling us, like, just riffing and rattling off all of these crazy illustrators and who they were, how they influenced them, what he dug, how he was introduced to them. One of the people that he introduced us to, that we also shared on the Kayfabe Instagram, was an illustrator named Sandy Cosson. And Sandy Cosson did the Bay of Pigs illustrations for like Time or Life magazine, I forget which. It's about 19 illustrations, some of them 2-page spreads. Like, this is $30,000 worth of illustration work at the very least. Never heard of Sandy Cosson before in my life. Maybe I saw the name in a TCJ article or something like this. Then the next week I read that Sandy Cosson, 93, has come on the other side of COVID-19, caught it, was very sick, and is fine now. Salutes to Sandy
Yeah,
Cosson.
man, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, we're still in the midst of nonsense, still trying to keep our heads above water. I have people in my life who are now affected by the nonsense, and that fucking sucks. But what can we do, man? We can present comics. We can kind of keep our minds occupied. We can shelter in place. You're the only dude I've seen in close proximity. Month and a half.
Yeah.
So like, but you know what? Like I've been prepared for this, man. When I was like a little dude, growing up in Homestead, so much violence. I lived in 3 different houses, and we moved for different reasons. None having to do with violence, but it just so happened that at all 3 residences, if not the next door neighbor, got shot, at least shot, sometimes murder. There was murder in the backyard. Like, the town was a fucking war zone in the 90s, and I barely went out anyhow. That's where I learned my first little bits of like how to draw comics. And then as like I started to get older and shit, I like sort of fell ill in my teens, had to get surgery on my tummy and shit. And when you get cut open, that's a 6-week recovery process, man. You ain't doing shit. Like when they give you this little paper when they kick you out, and they're like, take a set of stairs 1 time a day, for 2 weeks or something like that. So it's like now you're confined to like even a smaller piece of the crib or whatever, man. And so I'm just like used to, I've experienced that kind of shit before, and it's just like it ain't no thing, man. Like I'm just gonna get lost in my little comic book universe, man.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can't quite relate to the same history, but I get the phone call from people, and it's always, how are you doing or whatever, and it's always weird. Like, I don't know, it's not that different for me.
Here's the difference.
My wife's home more. That's the difference.
I have a palpitating chest when I have to go to the grocery store.
That is true.
That's the difference.
That is the difference. Like, I can't go anywhere, so it's much less dramatic than I think most people are experiencing. Knock on wood.
We had Mother's Day this past week, man, and of course, like my mom's still around. Like I'm not gonna even take the chance to get her sick, man. But one of the things I'm gonna post this every Mother's Day forever, dude, and it's the shit that I printed up in X-Men Grand Design, the first trade paperback, because it means so much. Like when I was a little dude, she had art, she had talent, and I would just grab comics and like get her to draw with me, and like, well, what do you she'd be like, well, what do you want? Oh, this guy. And the one piece that I still have is this blob that was on the cover of a Marvel X-Men index. Like I was that deep. Like I just want the indexes where I read about what happened in those 60s comics, man. And that's like the one piece I have, and I'm just gonna keep always putting that up every year. But I was thinking about like her and her situation growing up, because she does have art talent, totally squashed like by her folks and stuff. Like I had personally have 0 problems with my grandparents. You know how that goes, man. Like the old folks, they take care of the little kids, you're the baby, and it's all good. You don't see that side of them.
Very different relationship than the parents have with them.
But Pittsburgh is a very pragmatic, practical place, man. It's about tangibles, man, and like it got hit hard with like the Depression like everywhere else, and really our main form of industry was like the steel mill for a very, very long time. So much so that people above ground like got black lung and got sick from just the pollution that was in the air here in Pittsburgh, man. So like my grandparents on my mom's side, like they wanted you to be able to take care of yourself, and they wanted you to have a practical gig.
Right.
Like, yeah, good for you, man, that you could draw, but how's it going to put food on the table? And part of like the thing that makes me bristle in a lot of ways personally, man, about like the jobber kind of thing, man, is that like playing it safe kind of mentality. And my mom, she did all right. She's okay. But she has a bigger brother, my Uncle Brian, and this is like such an important thing for me to sort of know about whenever I was coming up, because your parents ain't always right, and you have to like have the fucking ball sack to do what you think is right sometimes at the risk of making them mad or whatever, man. So Uncle Brian was definitely super gifted, and I don't know how this works, but at least in the 60s or early 70s, there was like almost like NBA scouts or something. There was like scouts from corporations that like come to schools and like put people through college and basically turn you into a lifer at Ma Bell.
Right.
You know, that happened on my dad's side. My aunt, she was a lifer at Ma Bell when it was Ma Bell, before the baby bells, you know, and the divestiture. So Uncle Brian got put through school by IBM and has worked for them forever. Now, he had the chance. He went to school, like, a dude he went to school with in a very small shithole part of Pittsburgh was this dude named William Campbell. And William Campbell is the guy who created Intuit. He was one of the first Apple employees. These dudes grew up same circumstances. And William Campbell had to, like, tell his parents to fuck off. I'm going out to Cali to go hang out in a garage. In a dude's garage, man. To go, like, because I believe in this thing. He was, like, in Apple employee speak, like, your badge number is, like, that's meaningful. His badge number had, like, 2 digits to it. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, my uncle who did super great, but is a fucking drone, you know? Like, he's just a corporate, like, he's just in the mix, man, and doesn't make decisions, that isn't part of anything sexy, but it's stable, and you're going to have that job, you're going to get the gold watch and all that kind of thing. But then homeboy took that chance. I've already been going on long enough, man, but, like, you know, my aunt on the other side has a version of that too, man, where it's like 2 people from the exact same struggles, and one just has the balls to try a couple of things, man, and make mommy and daddy mad.
Yeah.
But, you know, ended up prospering.
That's so interesting. I think a lot, and this is sort of connected, but probably not exactly, because it's a half-formed thought, but I've been having it a lot watching the Michael Jordan documentary on ESPN, and it's that idea of, like, everybody plays basketball,
right?
You know, at some point in your life, but when you think of the people who actually make a living at it, it's such a tiny, less than 1% thing, you know?
Yeah.
Almost all of life sort of has that.
Yeah.
Whether it's being entrepreneurs and, you know, taking a chance and who knows, several companies or several of these startups or whatever, or making comics, you know, like everybody, when I was 5, everybody I knew drew, you know what I mean? And it winnows down, and I don't take it for granted if I can make money on comics, if I can make a living doing this. Like, there's no given that that's how it works. Like, it's tough, and we're hearing that, you know, whenever we talk to these different people and shoot interviews, even people who achieve tremendous success, it's not overnight. It's never overnight. You know, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen that way, and it's not expected to, you know. So do you take the safe route and go to college on this corporate dime and be able to make a middle-class living and support your family? That's not a bad thing, but it depends what you want and what, you know, what those goals are, because that is a certain path.
Yeah.
And it's not that path to the to that, you know, whatever these sort of chancier, lower percentage roles are. There are risks involved. My favorite moment in the latest Jordan episodes, at the end of it, is Jordan saying, "You pay a price to win."
When he starts crying and breaking down, what do you think that is? We're talking about The Last Dance. It's a Netflix, ESPN companion piece that is coming out 2 episodes a week. Last 2 episodes are going to come out on Sunday. And there's the one part, I'm not sure if it's that episode or the previous, but he's talking about, like, oh yeah, you know, they look at me as a tyrant. You look at me as a tyrant, but that's because, and he points to the camera, that's because you never won anything.
Yeah. It's intense, man.
Dope. But as he is going through it, he breaks down and has to take a break. And, you know, I don't have it. Never mind. Like, what is, like, I wonder what he was feeling there. Was it the feeling, was it the passion for the game, or like passion for his choices of, like, you know how, like, you get so, you believe something so much that it could like cause you to tear up? Was it that? Was it admitting that he probably looked like a shit to all of his people and like he felt bad about that? Like that one moment, and there's no answer to that.
No, right.
But that one moment is something that I've been thinking about for the past week, because I just wanted to like knock on his head and just be like, what's going on in there, man? Like, what
Let
are you
me add
feeling?
another one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Is it him recalling this? Because that's intense. It's his last real season. Is it him remembering that intensity and knowing like that was the peak? You know, like now that I've gone back to that place and revisited it, just a reminder that I don't get to do that anymore. You know, it may not be regret. It may just be that nostalgia, you know, that remembering back.
The other thing that I sort of make note of while watching that Last Dance documentary, and it's something that I've always kind of been curious about, was just like, you got the players and we know the kind of egos involved there and the alpha personalities that are there. But Phil Jackson is a guy that I just become more and more curious about. And any guy who any alpha-minded ruler who's in charge of shaping other alpha minds, what is that mental set of gymnastics and karate that you have to do to make that work?
He's written, I think, a couple of books, and we should go through those at some point. Like sync that up sometime whenever we're reading or listening to them, because like he did it a couple times, right? He goes from Michael Jordan, biggest alpha guy in basketball, to then Kobe Bryant and Shaq. So he's almost like the superstar whisperer or something, and he's definitely written about it. You know, like he's a very interesting resume for the guy. And one of the things that I saw recently is that he was just about out of basketball, was going to go back to law school because he was coaching in like some minor league.
It's like a foreign country or something, wasn't it? Like Puerto Rico or some shit?
It might have been Albany, New York or something. I can't. He
Close
did do
enough.
some. He did do some in one of the territories, maybe Puerto Rico. But you know, like it just wasn't going anywhere for him. And Krause plucked him out of that. But it was really at a time when he almost left basketball completely. And it's like now it's hard to argue that he's not the best coach. At least you know one of the top 2 best coaches probably ever in basketball. And he almost didn't make it. Like early on in the journey, it was just like going nowhere, have no chance. One guy gives him a chance basically before he walks out the door, and look what happens.
Somebody on Twitter sent a request out to him, because they always talk about 11 rings, but he actually got a couple rings like as a player or something. Mm-hmm. And so he's got 13 rings. He's got more rings than Bill Russell. And they were like, can we see the other rings? And it's a beautiful photograph.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is the best I could do. Like, is it cool?
Wow.
And it's like all 13 rings, dude.
If you count coaching rings, Steve Kerr has more than Jordan. Because he's got 3 as a coach. He has 1 with San Antonio and 3 with Chicago. So, hey, man, he earned Jordan's respect whenever he stood up to him, right? When he didn't win the fight. But
yeah, Steve Kerr's he's a meme as well, man. When he punches the clipboard and shatters it in a million pieces.
Wonder if he learned that one from Michael.
He's a real like suburban dad looking. Like I swear to God, I walk past Steve Kerr 3 to 4 times a day whenever I do my little 4-mile walk, man.
I've been enjoying that show though, I feel like it's gotten better. You know, like these last couple episodes to me have been the best ones, and I'm very eager to see the last 2 episodes and see how it peaks. I think they've done a good job. I like these long form documentaries. You know, ESPN had done that OJ one, I don't know, last year or the year before, that was like 6 hours. And
yeah.
I had no plans of watching that and watched the whole thing and liked it. So
you know how they roped me in and got me to even consider it? Kudos to them, man. If this was some sort of manipulated marketing strategy in some way, but they got the documentarian who did that was on the second half of the Dan Klaus Mark Maron episode.
Ah, wow.
So
I probably would have heard that then.
So you come for the Klaus.
Yeah.
And then that guy comes on, and he's smart enough to say, it ain't about OJ. You know, because that's I'm sure that's like what would make you bristle. Like we lived through that back in the day when there was 25 channels and all we're seeing is OJ Simpson coverage and shit. That was worse than the Jerry Lewis Labor Day telethons, man, when there's 3 channels and you just got that one on all day. So it's like, I don't need any more of that. And it wasn't about OJ. It was about like the entire sort of like political climate, the racial climate of the country, like leading up to just like how like Compton, Watts, like those areas, like even sort of became black neighborhoods and shit like there's like, so it's like all this thorough stuff like leading up to, you know, the trial shit, and then they got some good copy on there.
I feel like they dropped the ball by not having the New Jack promo when he references O.J. Simpson in that documentary would have been good. And then like one of the most compelling parts of that series for me was the end, which was like O.J. now. It's the O.J. we never see.
Yeah.
You know, like we're sick of the O.J. coverage we lived through, but like the current stuff, that was a compelling documentary.
Real creepy too, because it's like yeah, he's in the rap videos and stuff, but then he's also dating like Nicole Simpson looking ladies.
Oh, super creepy, of course. What else could it be? Like, has anybody had a more bizarre life than O.J. Simpson?
Did you the same year the miniseries came out where Cuba Gooding Jr. and the guy from Friends were playing those characters?
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I remember that, but you know the great thing with that documentary is it's like, here's this guy who wanted to be famous or whatever, and then once he becomes the most famous he's ever been, it's as a murderer.
Right.
Like, it's nuts. Like, no story. You couldn't write a story like that.
Yeah. We should get out of here soon, man, because I know how to make those stories. We could construct that story, but it's not a good idea, and that means I'm getting loopy, and we still have work to do.
That is true.
So, gotta hit Jimmy's Kickstarter, man. Octobriana. Yes. Check out the Octobriana video that we posted. There's going to be a link below most videos, man. Have you been tagging pinning the links and shit? Go hit the Jimmy's Kickstarter, man. Support that. Patreon, patreon.com/edpiscore
yes.
is the Patreon. What else do you have to hit, man? We can get
subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter in the notes below this video. I'm working on one of those for this weekend. You can find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and merch, including this one, at the links below the video as well.
And once again, man, the ideology of Cartoonist Kayfabe is very, very simple, and it is to read more comics.